Hey guys, 𝘧𝘠𝘦𝘍𝑒 here for CSM Practice, the Customer Success Strategy Consulting firm. Today, we're going to talk about a very important topic called product adoption. There's so many companies that have lots of end users, and one of the challenges that they face is getting the product adopted. And I'm not just talking about the first few minutes of just getting acquainted with the product. We have so many features and functions and things that we want to have our end users do. And what is the best way to actually do that? We can't have our customer success manager call all of them, right? Especially if we have a lot of them. So today we're going to talk about how to drive product adoption with one of those channels called emails. Can we leverage emails to drive product adoption? And I have the right expert here today to share her experience and expertise with you. It's none other than 𝘾𝙪𝙑𝘚𝘕𝘠, Global Head of Customer Success Innovation and Intelligence for VMware. 𝘾𝙪𝙑 is a result-driven customer success executive. She's been in this business and have done various customer success roles in the past 20 years. Her current role at VMware is to strategize, build and deploy tech touch and long-tail customer success programs. And she's also working to redefine and operationalize the voice of the customer program. And so with over 20 years of experience, 𝘾𝙪𝙑 has established and grown customer success teams, operations, strategies for companies like Juniper Network, Oracle, Blue Nose Analytics, Host Analytics, and Human Concepts, what used to be called Saba. I'm super excited you're here today to just share your strategy and how do you drive product adoption specifically via email campaigns. Thank you so much for coming in on our channel today.
Likewise, thank you so much. It's been a long time, so it's really great to catch up with you. I'm so glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
This is going to be one of those sessions that really is an eye-opener for any company that either struggles and is challenged in reaching out to end users via the app, especially if they've fallen out of engagement there. One of the tools that we have is email campaigns. And so before we go into that, I mentioned Tech Touch is one of your roles, responsibilities. Potentially, can you just expand on what is customer lifecycle journey for a tech touch customer? Before we continue, don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel and smash that notification button so that you don't miss out on any new videos.
Tech touch, admittedly, right now has a bit of an identity crisis. In the market, you'll hear it called the long tail, you'll hear it called tech touch, you'll hear it called digital customer success, you'll hear it called at scale. And I actually see servicing the long tail delineated from tech touch. Tech touch is really more in how do you lean into technology and service your customer base through technology. Whereas a long tail program usually is tech led, but has individuals behind the scene to kind of catch customers that may be falling out of the customer journey, so on and so forth. And so I'm working to develop both. I also think that delineating between the two helps you to enable tech touch to move up market. Traditionally, tech touch is used at scale so that you can service, if you were to think about your customer pyramid, you can service that lower quartile of your customers and reduce your cost to serve, as well as scale your customer success managers. You could service more customers more programmatically through the life cycle. But at the same time, tech touch should be leveraged as a means to scale your people that are servicing your customers. Be that customer success managers, technical account managers, a combination of both, and even into your account teams.
Could you elaborate on what other tools or other actions have you taken to make sure that whatever you start with first is going to have the appropriate content as well as the right channels to start with? Do you do anything else beyond looking at usage analytics? If you liked what you've heard so far, that's awesome. More coming in a second here, but in the meantime, I want you to click that like button so that YouTube knows that this is great content and you can start sharing it with others.
I do what I call reconnaissance before I do anything at all. And I use the word reconnaissance in its very traditional term. Reconnaissance basically means go out, snoop around, and report back on what you find. I look at the customer journey. I look at the customer life cycle. I look at a customer's ability to move across the journey without friction. I look at the number of support cases and why support cases. I look at the usage data. Now there's multiple types of usage data. A lot of people like to call it in one single bucket as telemetry, but traditionally telemetry data is really about what version of OS are you using? What's the temperature of your CPU? And for many SaaS providers, that's not interesting. So looking at end user clickstream information, along with admin panel information. So is the technology been set up the way that it's supposed to be set up? Do you have the right administrative flips and switches and dials turned correctly for that use case to be successful? I also look at engagement information, voice of the customer. I also look at whether or not customers are participating with us. I also look at customer health because a lot of times that looks at a holistic approach. I like to look at every little bit and then determine two things. One, am I getting started with a reactionary program because I see leakage or churn or customers that are having trouble adopting a feature, a function, or even just getting started? Or do I have an influx of brand new users and we need to get them onboarded and we need to create a tech-led customer experience that helps a customer to get started? Eventually, you'll land in both camps. But where you start depends on your data and where your customers are.
You mentioned voice of the customer. Did that include any focus groups, surveys, talking to customers from that long tail segment or mainly high touch?
We look at the voice of the customer through the data that we have. VMware has a very rich voice of the customer program. We've got listening posts in a lot of different areas across a lot of different technologies, to include our company-wide NPS program. We look a lot at the customer verbatims as well as CSAT scores, NPS, so on and so forth. But we also have a program in which we leverage to interview customers. We do talk to our customers, both our very largest of customers and our smallest of customers, to learn a little bit more about what do they need from us? Where do they want people, right? And then where do they not need people? Where do they need to be more independent? And we just need to make sure that they've got the right tooling or the right access. And we're serving that up proactively.
For those who are watching the channel and have never heard about verbatim before, that just means that you scan through, for example, all your survey comments that, people actually type in to explain why they gave you a certain score. And somebody actually, an analyst, most likely in marketing, usually goes and buckets those comments in different types of verbatim codes. What did they say about productivity? What did they say about the UI? Like different themes. And then they shore it up back to people who make decisions like Carrie to decide how this is going to impact their strategy going forward. You mentioned 2 points. One is, how do you source the data so that you can make the right decisions about your program? And then you made a very brilliant comment about, look, we can't just expect to drive adoption with one channel, and email communication is just one of them. You said not all the users are going to be in all the places at the same time. And in fact, I'm going to add to that not all users have the same preference in consuming the data or the information that you have in order to produce a higher adoption of your products. Can you give us some examples of those omni-channels that you were considering as part of your product adoption program?
When you think about where your customers are, and usually in many technologies, an end user won't have the same level of access and permissions as the admin. Therefore, now you've got to solve for how do you communicate with this persona versus that persona? And then where are they? Are they in the product? Are they not in the product? Do end users use the product infrequently and the admin uses more frequently? Based upon that and the journey, that obviously means that your administrator would be more appreciative of an in-app experience versus us sending emails. Your budgetary owners, your influencers, and maybe your signatories, if they are different personas with your technology, Usually they're not always in the app. Then what? Well, most executives live with one of these in their hands. Email for them is becoming very noisy. At that point, what works? Is it an SMS? Or is it an email that has been written just so everything that they need to know is above the fold, so that they don't have to scroll? And if they're in an elevator or on a train, they get exactly what they need and they know what it is. So again, Omni-Channel is really built for leveraging technology to meet your customers where they are. Where your customers are is dependent on how your technology works, what your technology does, what are you there to do, and why do you exist? Because that then will inform your personas and where they're accessing your technology or your content.
Tell me more about how you leverage email campaigns for driving product adoption, 𝘾𝑪𝑦.
Well, a lot of times we'll look at our existing product adoption and where we see areas where there's opportunity for improvement. That's the first place that we go with an email campaign. At VMware, we've used a traditional email campaign that you would see in marketing. It goes out vis-a-vis Marketo or Acton or Pardot or HubSpot, whatever it is that you're using. It's literally a reactionary type experience. We'll notice that use of feature Y isn't exactly what we would want it to be. So we'll choose a cohort of customers and we'll begin to test. We'll test the messaging. We'll test the verbiage in the message. We'll test the content that we produce and provide. I'm a big fan of A/B testing. If you're not familiar with A/B testing, you have two versions of the same message and you watch them compete against one another. Where you have a winner, then you spin up a third, you ditch the loser, you spin up a third, you compete against those, so on and so forth. And you're never done. You just continue to evolve and iterate. And so we sit back, and when we do that, we watch a number of things. We watch whether or not customers are even opening the content. What's our click-through rates? What's our open rates, opt-out rates? We know immediately whether we're leaning in with content and messaging that our customers are looking for based on those initial marketing-led metrics. And then we look at what's the time it takes between a customer to receive the content, consume the content, and then act on the content. And then obviously we watch adoption rates. So we want to see that up and to the right line graph in terms of feature functionality or even product consumption.
You talked about defining the message and the format and doing A/B testing, as well as seeing what are the success criteria. So you talked about a few KPIs that you're tracking. I think it's absolutely fabulous. Wanted to ask you, like, dumbing it down for somebody that has never done an email campaign. When you say email campaign, do you really mean like multiple emails in a series, or you're just sending the one and see what happens?
Personally, I believe in series. I've seen it done both ways. What I like to do first is I like to create, what is the use case? You've gone out and you've done your reconnaissance. You know who you're targeting, why you're targeting them, and you know what you want them to go and do, right? So you've already decided what good looks like. From there, partner with your marketing team because you want to make sure that you're on brand, you're on message, you're representing your company. Your company worked hard for a very specific level of excellence. So make absolutely sure that your marketeers are your best friends before you get started. And then secondly, fire off your first message with your content, watch the behavior, follow up with a second email within a certain period of time. I personally like to look at about 10 business days before I send my second message. But the cadence in which you're communicating with your customers, it really depends on how complex your technology is. User can be very independent, or whether they need administrative assistance, that kind of thing, right? So your cadence is really going to depend on how your application or platform works. Then from there, I do fire off a third message. And if that doesn't work, I go away and then I'll come back in about 30 days with an entirely different set of content and different set of messaging.
So just so I understand, usually you do 3 messages. The more complex the ask or the path to adoption, the longer you wait between messages of up to 10 days. And then if they're not really engaged, meaning open click-through rates, then you might nurture them in a different sequence 30 days later. Did I get that right?
You've got that right. And traditionally, a different sequence would look like social channel, might look like an in-app experience. It might look like a second email structure and campaign, depending on what it is that we're seeing.
So in fact, the next sequence might not be an email sequence. It could be a campaign for adoption through a different channel because this one didn't work.
That's exactly right.
Do you have a formula of what should be included in message 1 versus message 2 versus message 3? I'm just thinking it's almost like a sales cycle on selling them, adopting. So I'm thinking the first one, I'll probably tell them why it's important. The challenge is kind of build the business case and maybe tease them with a video that just explain the methodology or why it's important. And then the second one, I might actually say, well, if that was interesting, here's, I don't know, a training you can opt into. Here's a video you can opt into. Am I going about it the wrong way? Do you do something completely radically different? I mean, you're the one with the experience.
I think you nailed it. So again, it depends on persona. If I have a budgetary owner or a signatory or even an influencer, and I see that they're using a very small percentage of their technology, personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with telling that customer, you're not getting ROI. Right? You're investing in all this technology, you're investing all this time. Let's get value, right? We've got to get you to value. You bought us for a reason. Let's get you there from here. These are the things that you should probably think about consuming. We're going to go off and we're going to work with your admin or, your team members to get them to consume, but you as the executive stakeholder should be fully aware. And your CSMs, by the way, are having those same conversations. If you have a business review process or set of plays that you use internal to your company, or if you're using success planning or even adoption guidance through any of your customer success, your human-led customer success strategies, this isn't different. It's just typewritten versus a human having that narrative with your customer. The second thing that I would do is if I'm working with an end user and the technology itself is really easy to consume and that individual can be independent without, administrator requirement, assistance rather, or anything like that, serve up the content, give them a video. This is how you use this. This is why you would use this. And then you have to make sure that you illustrate what's in it for them. How are you going to make their life better? How are you going to make their job better? How are you going to save time, money, any of those things that we all are so desperate for throughout our daily life? You're going to communicate with your customers in the same way that you want to be communicated with. So think it through. What gets your attention? Well, if I'm losing money, that gets my attention. If I'm wasting time, that really gets my attention. We don't want to be as blunt as that. But the point is that, you want to illustrate those things to your customer because that produces an incentive on why they should act and why they should react to your messaging.
I want to thank you so much for sharing all of this knowledge with us. Any last tips for our audience who are just embarking on email campaigns for product adoption?
Make sure that you have really solid alignment. So I mentioned make marketing your best friend, but also product, because product managers really, really do want customers to consume their product. But when you think about the skill set difference, those of us who are out in front of customers, product managers do talk to some customers, but that's not, what their day job is. Their day job is in the spirit of making great products. And so through your partnership, you can help guide them into making your products better, as well as helping them to do what they need to do, which is get customers to consume. So make sure that your partnership is there and it's solid and everybody understands that, right? You're one company, one team, and you've got a set of customers that together you guys are out to get those customers to win.
Guys, if you got anything from this video, post it in the comments below for Carrie. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button so you can get all the notifications as soon as these videos come up. And Carrie, I look forward to seeing you again on this channel. And guys, hope to see you too on our next video.